attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining today. You're going to hear about the LEED version for MR credits. We're going to be talking about the sourcing of raw materials credit. My name is John Jewell. I'm a senior consultant with ThinkStep, and I'm joined by Sophia Wong. She's another senior consultant at ThinkStep. And I have Rick Crawford on the line, a sustainable strategist at GreenWizard. I'm actually standing in for Heather Gatineau, who couldn't make it due to flight issues this morning, but we're going to go through these slides and we'll be taking questions in the chat window. So if you have any questions, type those in and we'll respond to them at the end. And I guess we'll go ahead and kick it off with the first slide. Great, thanks. So just in terms of a little background, the U.S. Green Building Council has developed LEED version 4, but they've extended the deadline by which project teams need to comply with it into October 2016. In previous versions of LEED, the project teams could earn points by checking boxes for recycled content, regional materials, and some of those other single attributes. LEED version 4 now emphasizes transparency and reporting, and so that's why we're going through these webinars to bring everyone up to speed. The main point I'd like to make here, though, is that manufacturers are trying to prepare for LEED version 4 and get ready for this coming deadline. Some are trying to get ahead of the game and be prepared because planning for addressing these new requirements can take a little bit of time. Just as a quick aside, for those of you who've known us over the years, PE International has changed our name. We're now ThinkStep, which is part of a goal is to change our name as to better reflect our mission to help our customers succeed sustainably. So we're going to help you not only do the analysis and the thinking, but we'll help you take action and take that step toward a more sustainable enterprise. For those of you who don't know us, we work in sustainability across the value chain in most any industry you can think of. We work with raw material suppliers, manufacturers, up through architects, designers, contractors and owners, and this gives us a comprehensive view across the value chain for product and building LCAs, product declarations, supplier engagement, corporate sustainability. And we have a number of product suites which handle these different aspects of sustainability, anything from life cycle assessment and product compliance through corporate sustainability reporting and management, supplier engagement, to EH&S and energy management. So I'll turn it over to Sophia, and she can tell you about the LEED credit.
Great, thanks, John. So the sourcing of raw materials credit, so that's our big focus today, is one of the less well understood MR credits. So we're going to start at the beginning, at the intent of the credit, because that'll help to wrap our heads around this credit. Sometimes the documentation that is asked for has some alternative pathways, there's some openness for other frameworks. The way USGBC and the Materials and Resources Technical Advisory Group, MRTAG, is going to consider these alternative pathways and frameworks is whether the documentation that you provide meets the credit intent. So let's start there. So at the beginning, all building products were once extracted, either from a forest, from a mine or oil field, sometimes from a farm. And as we know, conventional extraction practices can cause deforestation, degradation of water sources, other negative impacts such as threats to endangered species, releases of toxic chemicals that affect the health of the environment and human health, and the infringement of Indigenous peoples' rights. So for all these reasons, this credit on sourcing of raw materials encourages the use of responsibly sourced and extracted materials. So to minimize the negative environmental and social impacts associated with conventional practices. In addition, the credit also encourages project teams to reduce raw material usage by selecting reused and recycled materials. In other words, avoid causing the negative impacts in the first place. So now that we understand the intent, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the documentation. So there are 2 points to the sourcing of raw materials credit. And depending on what type of product you manufacture, you may be eligible to contribute to one or both credits. The first option is a reporting credit, and that applies to all building product manufacturers. This option rewards project teams for sourcing at least 20 products from suppliers that publish corporate sustainability reports. And the U.S. Green Building Council accepts a number of different frameworks for these reports, and they mention a whole list, but the most common of which is the Global Reporting Initiative, or GRI. Option 2 is not about reporting, it's about performance, and it applies to manufacturers of bio-based products, whether wood or non-wood. It applies to manufacturers of products that contain recycled content, and to companies that offer take-back programs. So first we'll dig into option 1 and the details and documentation required there. Project teams are asked to specify products that from manufacturers that can provide reports of raw materials from their suppliers. So that means a sustainability report from the product manufacturer, but also evidence that its suppliers also publish corporate sustainability reports. So you can look at this in 2 tiers. For publicly traded companies, such as the one shown here, a GRI report is already an established expectation. However, for private companies, this may be a new expectation. Even for those companies that already have sustainability reports, the credit goes beyond the regular GRI indicators and asks for 4 added elements. So they're listed here. This isn't typical information, so it's important to review your report if you already have one and make sure that you add these to them. So the first one is the locations of the extraction locations of your raw material suppliers, and commitments, a set of 3 commitments from your suppliers to long-term ecologically responsible land use, to reducing environmental harms from extraction and manufacturing processes, and to meeting voluntary standards or programs that address responsible sourcing. So the emphasis here is for manufacturers of building products to engage with your supply chain. So it's not enough just to report on your own practices. And the credit also incentivizes third-party verification. I'd mentioned earlier that project teams need to source 20 products that publish reports. A self-declared corporate sustainability report would only count at half value. So to get that full value of a full product, then it would be important to get that third-party certification. I have an example here that maybe shows how it doesn't have to be terribly daunting. I worked on this project with a product manufacturer to conduct a gap assessment on what it would take to meet this credit. So it turned out that this product manufacturer had a significant market in the UK. And in the UK, responsible sourcing had been part of the definition of green building for some time. And this manufacturer was already certified to the BRE 6001 standard, which already asks for extraction locations. So the gap for this manufacturer in this case was to then include this information in their GRI report. They already had the data, they just had to publish it. And then what about the supply chain engagement aspect? Well, the manufacturer was already engaging its suppliers with other types of questions related to health and safety and environmental management systems. So they just needed to add these 3 questions related to these commitments to its existing supplier questionnaire. So in this particular manufacturer's case, the gap to meet the credit requirements was easily filled. I hope that makes it sound not as daunting then. Let's dig into the next option, option 2, which is about practices rather than reporting. So project teams are encouraged to source products that meet at least one of the following responsible extraction criteria: extended producer responsibility and bio-based certifications, whether FSC certified for wood or for non-wood products, certification that the product was grown on a farm that meets the sustainable agriculture standard. Also, the reuse of materials and recycled content are covered under option 2. So you may be wondering why there's no mention of regional materials. That's because regional materials are no longer a separate MR credit in LEED version 4. Now, in LEED v4, sourcing of regional materials is considered a multiplier to these other options, these listed options here. So you can see that in the equation at the bottom of the slide. Now, there is also a difference on what's considered local. That's in the next slide here. There is a difference. In LEED 2009, 500 miles was the definition of a local product. So this radius requirement has been decreased to 100 miles. And it's important that all extraction, manufacture, and purchase, including the distribution of the product and its materials, must occur within that radius. So it's a much stricter definition of local. So in terms of documentation of recycled content, as an example, it's important to distinguish between post-consumer and pre-consumer recycled content. So that's another difference between 2009 and LEED v4. And the information can be presented from the product manufacturer themselves. That's the example on the left from Nucor, or you can provide a third-party certification, such as this one from UL Environment. So to summarize then, the MR credit on raw materials encourages project teams to go beyond single attribute thinking, such as recycled content, and to make more intentional decisions based on better information, more complete information about the human health and environmental attributes across the material's life cycle. And it also recognizes that life cycle assessment, which we'll cover in greater detail in another webinar in this series, but that it doesn't provide the full picture. So what USGBC is trying to do is allow for other types of information and documentation to fill those gaps. So now I'm going to hand it over to Rick to explain what you can do once you have all your documentation put together.
All right, thanks for the introduction, Sophia. For those of you not familiar with GreenWizard, we are the building product management solution for both the design and construction community and the building product manufacturer community. We save designers and contractors time and money through our collaboration tools, and we provide building product manufacturers with an integrated marketing program that marries marketing, analytics, and sales tools that gives them a demonstrable return on investment. Next slide, please. So GreenWizard's collaboration tools help to create greater workflow efficiencies, which help our design and construction customers maximize profits. They can come to GreenWizard to simply search, evaluate, and compare materials. They can collaborate firm-wide, even across different office locations, by selecting products for their private digital library, where they can create custom labels. So for LEED version 4, for example, they can perform internal usage and reviews on products, and even see which products their firms use most often. They can also invite in their entire project team, even those outside of their organization, for enhanced project team collaboration, and take advantage of our tools like our product trackers, which we offer a custom product tracker, a transparency product tracker, and obviously as it relates to this, a LEED version 4 MR and EQ tracker that they can export to submit to LEED Online. And we also offer an Architecture 2030 energy reduction calculator. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, designers and contractors can search, evaluate, compare materials at GreenWizard so that they can make the most informed and ultimately responsible building product choices for their clients. So this is a page here from our main product search page, and you can see there's a variety of ways that they can filter to find what they're looking for, whether it's specifically looking for EPDs, HPDs, or taking a more detailed look into LEED version 4. But one of the main challenges our design and construction customers face is the amount of time spent on researching materials and where to find information related to transparency in LEED version 4. So we make it very easy for them to find what they're looking for by making this transparency information available, accessible, and in a central location. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit more of a close-up as it relates to the MR and EQ credits. So our software, to my knowledge, we're the only software solution in the market that has the rules for LEED v4 already built into our search page, and tools that will automatically track those materials and calculate the LEED credit points. So in short, we take much of the headache associated with finding, evaluating, comparing, selecting, and tracking materials for LEED version 4. As you can see here, they can easily find specifically what they're looking for if they're looking for sourcing of raw materials and want to find those manufacturers that have those GRI certified reports. They can very easily do that, return that list, evaluate, compare, and make the most responsible choice for their client. Next slide, please. So basically, that's on the design and construction side. On the manufacturer side, we offer an integrated marketing program that provides building product manufacturers with a return on investment and helps them make the business case for transparency. We're one of the only marketing platforms that allows building product manufacturers to differentiate themselves by way of responsible product attributes. For example, they can call them out in their banner advertisements. We also provide a platform that enables our integrated marketing customers to enhance their brand equity and build customer loyalty by way through their advertisements, as well as the multiple education and awareness opportunities. And through our analytics that we provide them, we're able to show them a return on marketing investment far beyond just views and clicks, but additionally insights that can help to drive their responsible certification, label, or declaration strategy. Next slide, please. So ultimately, what's the opportunity for manufacturers? Of the 1,400 or so that are listing products with GreenWizard, currently only 27% of them have responsible product certifications, labels, and declarations listed on our site. That said, they're being selected for projects and libraries better than 50% of the time. So there is a tremendous opportunity to differentiate from competitors and enhance your brand equity and see a return on investment, especially here at GreenWizard from a manufacturer's perspective, but from the a design and construction or a designer or contractor's perspective, we really help to enhance collaboration, which is going to save them time and ultimately money to maximize profits for them. So at this time, I will hand it back over. Appreciate it.
Great, thanks, Rick. So I'm going to answer questions after this, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows we're going to be at Greenbuild, and we hope we see you there. Here's our booth information. Please stop by. But I also wanted to reiterate that the slides and recordings of these webinars will be made available. We've got 2 more of these webinars queued up for next Thursday and Thursday after that. So once they're all done, we will send all the information out to the group. So in terms of questions, I'll take this this first one and I'll actually pass it to Rick. So has anyone done a study of how many products in the U.S. are currently going to qualify for this regional multiplier, and what do you think the market effect of this credit might be?
To my knowledge, there isn't any sort of study related to it, and in terms of a market impact, you know, it'll, in terms of the regionality of being within 100 miles and having a multiplier, I don't know that I can answer that just yet, because I haven't seen any of the results from that, if that's a differentiator or not for some of these manufacturers.
It's okay.
I have a comment on that, John.
Go ahead.
Just that I think the reason why this regional multiplier has been made so strict is that when you do a life cycle assessment, the transport of the material doesn't actually have one of the largest impacts of a building product. So if it's going to create a market shift, it's going to take away this artificial incentive to source locally. I think the idea is to source the better product, the product that has the smaller, you know, environmental and health impact. And so it's going to drive the market in different ways rather than artificially trying to promote local sourcing.
Thanks, Sophia. So there was another question about whole building life cycle assessment. So what does whole building LCA entail in version 4? And I'll take this one, at least I'll get started. So typically, life cycle assessment has focused on a single product, a single material, or perhaps even a process in the manufacturing chain. And the idea of whole building life cycle assessment is to add all those materials together in the context of a building with the help of the tools that architects and designers are already using when they're designing a building, and aggregate all the life cycle assessment results for all the materials up into a very large product. If you were doing an LCA of a chair and you aggregated the steel and the plastic and all the components of that chair, you would, in a similar way, take the components of a building, the windows, subfloor, the roof, and add all those components into that finished product for a whole building LCA. So there was another question about third-party certifications for the reporting aspect of this sourcing of raw materials credit. I'll put this to Rick or Sophia. Do you know who are some of those third parties that offer this certification service?
I believe a list can be found on the GRI website, and that they approve the certifiers, but we can definitely look that up and provide you an answer by email if you just want to provide your name in the chat window as well.
Okay, great. So here's another question about using different MR credits for the same product. So basically, can a manufacturer or a product be considered for multiple LEED points? So, for example, a published GRI report, as well as, for example, an EPD or a health product declaration. And I'll take this one. The answer is yes, they can qualify for multiple LEED credits. I know that we've been working with some of our manufacturers who are trying to, at the same time, collect information which will be used for an EPD, an environmental product declaration, and an HPD, a health product declaration. A lot of the bill of materials and some of the details about the product can be collected at the same time, and then the manufacturer would be able to use that same product to qualify for more than one LEED credit, which is pretty exciting. Anything else to add from Rick or Sophia there?
Yeah, I would just say that you're able to search under different criteria, particularly at GreenWizard, for whether it's EPD or looking for the sourcing of raw material option 1 credit, and you may see those same manufacturers return in different searches, but can certainly track for those specific credits using our MR credit tracker, and they will show up accounting for both credits there.
Yeah, and my addition is that instead of focusing on one credit at a time, maybe it's a good idea to consider, oh, maybe we can contribute to all of these MR credits or a bunch of them related to product manufacturers. And instead of trying to tackle them one at a time, come talk to us. We can create efficiencies of scale. When you're collecting data from your suppliers, let's just go to them once and collect all the environmental, health, and social data we need at the one time instead of going to them 3 separate times, as an example.
Very good. Let's see if there's 1 or 2 more questions. This one is about checking and verification. Does checking and verification of these different options need to be done by 2 different organizations? I think the answer is that often a third party will check the documentation as part of the verification. So it's a single third party verifier. Sophia or Rick, correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, to my knowledge, that's correct.
So which documentation are we talking about? Go ahead, Rick.
No, you go ahead, Sophia. I was just going to say, to my knowledge, that's correct. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that it's very specific to the type of documentation. So third-party verification for a GRI report is different than third-party verification for an environmental product declaration. They all have different standards, and so it's important to get into the details of the particular standard or framework that USGBC is following.
Well, it looks like we're about out of time. I just wanted to invite everyone to please join us for our next webinar Thursday following, and come meet up with us at GreenBuild. We'll get back to you after the 3 webinars are done with recordings, slides, answers to some of your additional questions we didn't make it to, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks a lot, everyone.